add what Hasna said, I'm from OCP Group and also member of OCP Professors. So just a few words about OCP Professors. OCP Professors is a panel of experts that shares their expertise to colleagues, executives, and employees. So OCP Group, instead of being a learning company, started to be a teaching company. So our topic today is fertilizers markets and the WH question. So I will try to answer about some WH questions. Fertilizers, how are they used, where are they produced, when are they used? So I will start just by a disclaimer that all materials, information, and data used in this presentation are based on public information and intended only for education and general information without any commercial or financial purposes. So points of view and opinions here expressed are not expressed views and opinions of my current employer, which is OCP Group. Okay, so let's get started. So our agenda today, so as OCP Group is involved in the fertilizers industry, we have to know a little bit about it in order to understand fertilizers market. So we'll start with on a quick overview of OCP Group. We see some basic understanding of fertilizers because as if we are involved in fertilizers markets, we have to have some basic understanding of fertilizers. Of course, agronomes, they have more in-depth technical understanding of fertilizers, but as a marketer or market analyst, you have to have some basics of fertilizers. We see some definition, the role of fertilizers, and the production process. Then we'll go to analyze fertilizers markets by segments and by industrials. Then we'll see the fertilizers market dynamics. We'll try to see the factors that influence fertilizers market in terms of pricing, volumes, supply, and demand. So then we'll see a state of the current situation of the market. We have, so to better understand the present, we have to go back to the past and see the past, how was involved with fertilizers markets to understand the current situation in order to project a trending of the fertilizers market. We will have a look of African fertilizers market as Morocco is an African country and Africa is an emerging continent. So we'll see the current situation of fertilizers markets in Africa, then the challenges that Africa is facing. So then we'll see a little bit about Moroccan agriculture, some facts. We will talk about some facts and some paradoxes and some challenges that face Moroccan agriculture. And then we'll see the latest innovation and digital tools used in agriculture. Of course, and we end with the question and answers, which is my favorite part because during question and answers, many thoughts and ideas can arise and ideas can build to projects. So I encourage you later to give a questions. So let's start with a quick overview about OCP Group. OCP Group was founded in 1920, so just celebrated 100 years on the last 7th August. And a key date is 1965. OCP Group started chemical operations, which consist of to give a high value added to the raw materials, which is rock phosphate. In 1986, OCP Group started chemical complex in Zorplus, which enhanced its capacity to produce finished fertilizers products. And important date of OCP Group is 2008. OCP Group launched a leader 2009, which is a large long-term investment program. Then I will talk about later. So some key figures about OCP Group. OCP Group key figures. It has the largest deposit reserve in Morocco as the United States Geological Survey. OCP Group has 3 mining sites in Khoury, Gantour, and Boukra. two chemical sites, George Safi, and one is in construction in of course, 4 shipment ports and 30 affiliates, subsidiaries, and joint ventures, and more than 170 customers in all over the world. The key products of the group involved is basically rock phosphates, mining and processing for rock phosphate, then acid for merchant grade acid, and purified phosphoric acid for food and feed additives, then fertilizers and animal feed additives. The group has a market share about 33% of rock phosphate, 48% of phosphoric acid. Also, the first exporters and producers of phosphoric acid. Then about 20% of fertilizers are finished products. Since 10 or 15 years ago, OSAP Group has grown its market share on finished fertilizer products. So a little bit about this Operation Leadership 2009. It's a long-term investment program which consists to reach 4 important goals. The first one, to be leader in fertilizer industry, and of course to keep being leader in fertilizers. Second is to implement a new industrial process using latest technology of processing phosphate and finished products. Third is environmental and company social responsibility to safeguard its ecosystem. Then the latest one is using latest innovation and implementing digitalization in the process. So we see. So we start now with some basic understanding of fertilizers. So what are fertilizers? Like humans need to eat, fertilizers have to eat. So fertilizers are a set of nutrients that plants need, and then which are also essential to enhance plant growth, crop yields, and soil fertility. We can see we have 2 main fertilizers: organic fertilizers, which are processed by combustion, that man has been used centuries before, which consists of combustion of animal manure and organic waste, and mineral fertilizers, which are our topic of today. They are chemically processed from natural oil resources like rock phosphate, potash, sulfur, and other oils. So 2 main fertilizers materials. We have granular or blended, because fertilizers are produced liquid, then dried to get a granular fertilizers or blended fertilizers. And we have liquid or slurry. Before, fertilizers are a set of nutrients. So we have 2 kinds of nutrients: macronutrients and micronutrients. The macronutrients, which are largely used by plants, are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash. And micronutrients, which consist of sulfur, magnesium, calcium, copper, ore, and other. So there are in general 14 essential nutrient elements. So let's have a look of the role of this macronutrient: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash. Nitrogen is a leaf maker. It can protect the leaves and keep the leaf green. So these are only basic, not technically in-depth information. So phosphorus is a root maker and gives resistance and power to the plant. Potassium is a flower inducer and protects blossom. So every finished product of fertilizers, you can see that there are some ratio. In every bag, you can see there are 3 numbers. So first number means the content of nitrogen, second content of phosphorus, and third is potassium. So that's, and every bag there are 3 numbers which have to understand. So the content of first one content nitrogen, second content of phosphorus, and third of potassium. So how they are processed or manufactured? So we have 3 segments of fertilizers: nitrogen fertilizers, phosphate fertilizer, and potash fertilizers. So Nitrogen fertilizers, I mean finished products, use natural gas as a raw material input and then processed with air to get ammonia, and then we get ammonium nitrate or urea urea ammonium nitrate as a finished product. For phosphatic or phosphate fertilizers, we use rock phosphate as a basic input. Of course, after processing, then added to sulfuric acid. A sulfuric acid is obtained from sulfur to get phosphoric acid. We have two kinds of phosphoric acid, which one we use for the fertilizer market, and second grade for food and feed market. Then we have potash fertilizers that use potash rock as a basic input. In other words, finished potassium nitrate or sulfate of potassium. That's broadly how they are processed. So now we analyze the fertilizers markets. So we have three main segments. We have nitrogen fertilizers, which are products with high content of nitrogen. They can be simple or combined with P or K, and then we'll talk about complex or compound fertilizers. Then we have phosphatic fertilizers, which are products, of course, with high content of P. They also can be simple or combined with nitrogen or potash. And then we have also potash fertilizers, which are products with high content of potash. And they can be also simple or combined with nitrogen or phosphorates. So finished products we can have for nitrogen fertilizers. We can have ammonium nitrate, which have a rate of 3400, urea 4600, urea ammonium nitrate, three kinds of products. And we have phosphatic fertilizers that we will talk about MAP, monoammonium phosphate, DAP, TSP, and simple superphosphate. And then potash fertilizer as finished products, we have myriads of potash, which has 60% of K, 0 nitrogen and 0 phosphorus. We have sulfate of potash and a compound of nitrogen and potash. So to understand fertilizers market, we have to know the major industrials. So there are a large of industrials involved in fertilizers industry. Large industrials such as OCP Group, the American Mosaic, Canadian Nutrien, Saudi Maadin, Chinese Sinofert, Russian Fosagro, Norwegian Yara, and some junior companies. So just to have an idea of about the volume of companies involved in fertilizers industry, and each company has its specialty or its leadership in the kind of fertilizer. For example, for OCP Group is leader on phosphatic fertilizers. While we see, for example, for Mosaic is more involved in potash fertilizers rather than phosphate. They produce phosphate, but they are still losing their leadership in phosphatic fertilizers. Nutrien also involved, a Canadian company, is more involved in potash. While, for example, ICL Israel Chemical Limited is involved in both segments in potash and phosphate fertilizers, while Norwegian Yara is involved more in nitrogen fertilizers. So that's broadly about the largest producers of fertilizers. So now with the fertilizers market dynamics, we try to see the factors influencing the market. We have two factors that influence the fertilizers market: structural factors and variable factors. Structural factors have long-term effects like world population, so we will talk about later, world arable lands, world food production, the countries' developments like BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and Africa or South Africa. As economy developed, people are changing their diet and eat more meat and other food. And also world industries for long term that injects in the long term new capacities. So that influence also the supply and demand balance. Concerning variable factors, they have a short-term effect, like world economic trend and tension. For example, if there is a crisis or a turmoil for an economy, that the supply and demand are unbalanced and the price can change. Second is cost of input raw materials, gas, or rock phosphate or potash or sulfur. Any fluctuation in the market for these raw materials influence the price and also the supply and demand of the fertilizers. Short-term capex investments for companies that inject new capacities, and also weather conditions play a great role on determining of the price. If there is a drought, so there will be less supply of commodities like grains, and farmers will need more fertilizers. Consequently, the prices will go up. And last one is environmental regulations, like what's happening now in China. China has implemented a new environmental regulation and started and closed most of their fertilizers facilities, especially phosphate fertilizers, in order to revamp the facilities corresponding to the new Chinese environmental regulations. So let's have a look on the structural factor. We said, so there is a combination between world population and arable land. Arable land are shrinking, and world population is increasing. So in 2050, world population will be around 50 billion. So people will need food, but arable lands are shrinking. That's why the demand of fertilizers will increase in order to enhance crop yields. Let's talk about the total factor productivity, TFP. TFP is a ratio that measures changes how efficiently agricultural inputs are transformed into inputs. So as per current reports and studies, the current ratio of global total factor of productivity of food is 1.63%, while the required rate of global factor productivity must be as 1.73. So there's a shortage. About kind of low income, they have a TFP growth of 1%. So we see that there is a difference between the current rate, which is globally for the world, which is 1.63, and the low income countries is 1%. So as per Food, Agriculture and Organization, the world must increase the average rate to 1.70% to produce more food, feed, and bioenergy for 10 billion people in 2050. So the production of food must increase and will increase, and consequently, demand for fertilizers will increase. So here I have a chart that gives the evolution of the prices of fertilizers, rock phosphate, DAP, urea, potassium chloride, since 1960 to now. So we see that there is some fluctuation, but important date is 1974 and 2008. What happened at that time? 1974, there was an oil crisis, which has impacted the global fertilizers market. And then in 2008 happened the global financial crash, of course, it has influenced the global fertilizer market. But between 1974 to 2008, the market was a little bit quite steady until the crisis. After the crisis, all in the fertilizers industries have changed their strategy, because before it was the aim of industries was only producing finished products. I mean the classical finished products as now as DAP, MAP, TSP, without taking into consideration the farmer. Since 2008, the farmer has become in the center of the activity of industry. That's why they have changed the strategy. First one is to reduce the cost of production. As much as industrial decrease the cost of production, the price of fertilizers can reduce, and farmers can have access to fertilizers. And second one is to support and sponsor farmers, because before farmers used to use fertilizers without any formation or without any information how to use fertilizers efficiently. So if you use fertilizers and got bad yields, so he will blame that fertilizers are not a great factor to increase the yield. So that's why companies have come close to the farmers. So we will see later how they have dealt to approach the farmers. So that was about the past situation of fertilizers. Now the current situation, a little bit fertilizers are a little bit promising. There's an increase of production and increase of exports. So for example, for ammonia, for rock phosphate, it is evolving with a CAGR, compound annual growth, of 2-3%. While the potash, about 3.5. So in general, between 2 to 4%, the compound annual growth is movable. So that's why there will be more demand for fertilizers. Even there will be some fluctuation, but in generally, fertilizers markets globally is promising. So we'll have a look of current largest countries that produce different fertilizers. So for ammonia, the first producer is China, followed by Russia and USA. And then we have some other countries like Egypt, Algeria, and India. That India also produce ammonia, but require much quantities of ammonia. Concerning rock phosphate, we have China, the largest producer, followed by Morocco, and then United States of America. Of course, other volumes are produced in Jordan, Brazil, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and so. But largest producer is China, Morocco, and the USA. Concerning potash, potash is dominated by Canada and Belarus and Russia. For these countries, they count more than 60% of world potash produced. So concerning imports, consumption, for ammonia, even the United States, America is a large producer of ammonia. It consumes also ammonia and imports about 50% of its need. Then we have India in the second position, that imports about 14 globally as worldwide, a percentage of 14.3%. Then Morocco also a large consumer of ammonia, because it needs as input to produce fertilizers. Concerning rock phosphate imports, we have India, the first worldwide importers, with about world imports of about 23% of of world phosphate imports or world phosphate traded. Then followed by United States of America and some volumes for India, Brazil, and other countries. So for potash, Brazil is the largest importer of potash, followed by USA, and China counts also of potash for imports, and also India. It's a large importer. Of course, other countries that import small volumes, like Morocco. Morocco is also an importer of potash. So now we'll talk about the coming up capacities. Coming up capacities for nitrogen is estimated to increase annually, not to say, but some volumes that we can, even if there is COVID, we will talk about what impacts of COVID-19. So capacity for nitrogen is about 1.8%, and the supply is 1%, while demand is 1.8. So it means that more volumes, the demand is positive. The same for phosphoric acid and potassium. So all the figures, the numbers are positives in terms of demands and new capacity. So here I have a chart of the evolution of the price of different fertilizers from 2010 to now. So 2010 is the world has just come out from the financial crisis, and the fertilizers market started to recover. And then there has been a decrease starting 2015, and that's why when I talked about cost production, and it has been the cost protection is a major factor on determining the price and also the margin. So maybe we can see the prices have decreased, but among the industrials, it was, like I will say, it's between brackets, the war of cost of production. As far as you reduce your cost of production, you enhance the margin and you enhance the accessibility of different fertilizers. So what's happened? What's the impact of COVID-19 on fertilizers? Well, all countries started to lock down on March. There has been a little impact on fertilizers production or fertilizers shipments, for example, for Morocco, India, Tunisia. But then, starting late April, the market started to recover and the production started to resume. So in general, there is not a large impact of COVID-19 on the fertilizers market. Only one problem that has faced fertilizers companies is logistic problems, because there was no freight, ships or vessel was not available. The owner of vessels were afraid because there is no, when there is a shipment, they come back on ballast. It means they come back empty, which is commercially not good for the shipping companies. So generally, fertilizers company has not been impacted by COVID-19 except in the beginning of the lockdown. So now I talk about Africa fertilizers markets. So the current situation, we see Africa is rich of resources. For example, nitrogen is available in Algeria, Libya, Egypt, Nigeria, Tanzania, Mozambique. So it means that there is some basic raw materials in Africa. Concerning phosphate, there is a lot of countries that have phosphate deposits. For example, Morocco is large producers, while there is also rock phosphate in Mali, Togo, Senegal, and other countries. Concerning potash, there are few countries that have up to now some mining deposits. For example, Ethiopia, which started their potash project. Morocco a project is underway in Khmisset by an Emerson company. So just to know, few countries that have started projects to mine potash or to search of potash. So anyhow, in general, Africa has its own, I mean, globally, its own input raw materials. Let's talk about the impact of COVID-19 on African fertilizers markets. Well, as the same for worldwide, African countries was impacted in the beginning of lockdown, especially Guinea, Ghana. They have been strongly impacted, but then every country has recovered. So there has been some limited impact on Ethiopia, Zambia, South Africa. You know, but not in global, the impact was not crucial. The impact of COVID-19 was not crucial. So what's the current situation of fertilizers in African markets? We notice that the North Africa is a large producer, while sub-Saharan countries are consumers of fertilizers. So, for example, Morocco produce all kind of fertilizers. Algeria produce also fertilizers. Egypt and Libya. I'm talking about production. While most countries are counting on imports of fertilizers. South Africa, except South Africa, is an exporter of rock phosphate, but imports all fertilizers. Tanzania, Ethiopia is a major market, which and still counting on import, but other projects are implemented in Ethiopia to produce locally fertilizers. Some projects conducted by OCP Group, some projects conducted by Norwegian Yara. So later we will see the rush of fertilizers companies to the African continent. So let's talk about consumption in Africa, about fertilizers. So Africa is still weak in consumption of fertilizers, except Egypt, that's consume fairly huge quantity for their needs. So African countries still lack of fertilizer and nutrient consumption. If we compare Africa use of fertilizers to worldwide, we see that it's a great gap in number. For example, Brazil consumption is 125 kilogram per hectare, while in Ethiopia only 18, Mali 8 kilogram, Cote d'Ivoire 16. For example, India consumes 167 kilogram per hectare, while Netherlands 238. So there's a great gap of consumption of nutrient fertilizers for African countries. So as per current situation, we said that there's a lack of fertilizers, consumption of fertilizer for African countries, but to enhance crop yields, the consumption must increase. For example, for Ethiopia must increase about twice time. Some countries 9 times, like Liberia. Uganda must increase about 6 times. So African countries must increase their consumption of fertilizers to enhance their agriculture outputs. I will give you some shocking statistics. If we compare Africa with Western Europe, in African population is about 1 billion people, while Western Europe is only 400 million people. Western Europe consumes nearly twice time the amount of fertilizer that is consumed in Africa. It means that Western Europe, with only 400 million people, consumes 2 times what Africa can consume in terms of fertilizers that has 1 billion, more than 1 billion people. So there is another challenge for Africa fertilizers markets. Most African countries are landlocked countries. About 16 countries are landlocked, like Mali, Niger, Chad, Central Africa, Ethiopia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, Botswana, Swaziland, Lesotho. And that will have a problem, a logistic problem, how to supply these landlocked countries if there is a political problem between neighboring countries. For example, Ethiopia is counting on Djibouti to be supplied with fertilizers. Mali is counting on Dakar, on Senegal, or on Côte d'Ivoire from port of Abidjan to be supplied by fertilizers. So these landlocked countries which have agreed, they have agreed arable lands, promising agricultural activities, but there is a challenge and a threat about to be supplied of fertilizers as they are landlocked and counting on neighboring countries' ports to be supplied. As I said, if there is a political problems with neighboring countries, so there will be a disruption of supplying of fertilizers. So this is a challenge. So for Africa continent is an emerging market for agriculture and fertilizers. So there is a rush of industrials to Africa. For example, we see largest companies started to invest in Africa. For example, OCP Group implemented projects in Ethiopia and other African countries. We have Canadian Nutrien also entered to Africa. Yara, Norwegian Yara, with a lot of projects, Uralchem, and many other companies, and also institutions. This is concerning industrial companies, and also bank institutions and institutions just entering Africa, because Africa has attracted them. And important thing that concerns us is Africa has attracted universities and national and international research institutes. So there is a lot of research and development now happening in Africa. So I have an interactive map, but as it's not displayed, it cannot be displayed. So let's talk now about Moroccan agriculture. So here I have a map with the Moroccan situation of land. So we see in Morocco that there is north that can beneficiate of more than 800 millimeters per year of rainfall. So that small, as you see the map, it's a small parcel, and about only 90% of arable lands is only 19% is irrigated. So mostly the Moroccan lands, a quarter of Moroccan lands, it can be arable, while the 3/4 are Sahara desert or mountains, which up to now cannot be exploited until there is some research concerning salinity in Sahara provinces and so. So there is about 40% of people that work in rural agriculture. It means that rural activity employs about 40%. I mean, 40% living on agricultural activities. This number has decreased. While before Morocco, it was about 60 to 70 people were rural. So let's talk about, we have heard about Plan Maroc Vert, the green Moroccan plan. It's a plan of about $10 billion that aims to contribute to create about 1.15 million jobs by 2020 and triple the income of 3 million people in rural areas. So in general, this is the Moroccan Green Plan aims, it's a set of reforms of the agricultural activity. So let's talk about some paradoxes in the Moroccan agriculture. There is about 70% of farmers that have only less than 5 hectares, and they are counting on rainfall. While Morocco is the largest importer of grain. So this is a paradox. When you see 70 farmers has less than 5 hectares and counting on rainfall, but Morocco is large importer. And 40% of Arab lands produce cereals, which not enough for Moroccan consumptions. That's why Morocco imports grains, especially wheat, maize, sunflower. The irrigated zones with modern technology used only for agriculture export. So I said before, if you want to understand the situation, you have to go back to past. For Moroccan agriculture, we have to go to past when French colonization was in Morocco. So France was just going out from, stopped going out from the World War I and World War II, and they need more cereals, more food, more vegetables, and started to implement agriculture for Morocco their needs. That's why Moroccan agriculture continued to the French process. For example, small farmers, small quantity of large farmers produce agricultural products for export. In terms of the fertilizers consumption in Morocco, consumption of fertilizers is 4 times less than what is used in France. And use of technology, Morocco is 11 times less than the mechanization and technology used in Spain. So there is a large gap between large farm holders and small holders. Large farm holders have access to subsidies, credits, banks, and assistance, while some holders, they have difficult to get these facilities. So now I'll talk about innovation and the agricultural solution used in agriculture. So latest innovation now, we talk about nutrient use efficiency. So we have to use efficiently the fertilizer in order to avoid loss of fertilizers, because about 70% of fertilizers applied are lost. So plants benefits only from 30% of the fertilizers that are applied. That's why new innovative and new research developments in agriculture have been displayed. Let's talk about 4R stewardship. This is a principle, 4R stewardship, a principle to efficiently use fertilizers. Right source for fertilizers, this means what kind of fertilizer we have to use, right rate for that to use at the right time for the right place. Then we have smart fertilizers, the fertilizer that responds correctly to the needs of the plant. For example, a slow release of nutrients, or some fertilizers that are enriched, we call them enriched fertilizers. That fertilizers that are enriched with some secondary micronutrients. And the new technology used is satellite fertility mapping. We can study fertility of soil only by satellite, and using drones. As farmers started to use drones, some application has been developed in order to store and analyze data, and also support to farmers like mobile labs. That's why when in the beginning of the presentation I said since 2008 industries changed their strategy and took the farmer in the center of their activity. So to give assistance to the farmer by mobile lab, by moving to the farmer, analyzing his or her soil. Then, for example, for OCP group, there has been some campaign like Caravan OCP, which consisted of visiting farmers, whether in Morocco or in Africa, and Act for Communities. This is special for small holders, and also the operation of Al-Mutmir of OCP group, which then we'll talk later about Al-Mutmir, and also developing and encouraging all agri-research and developments. So let's talk about Al-Mutmir of OCP group. It's a wide range of services and consisting of approaching to be close to the farmers, to assist them and give them all tools, innovative tools and innovative production units like smart blender or mobile application, creating a call center to receive feedback with the farmers and to make them more close to the sensor and connected devices such as applications and using mobile. And digitalization of their process and transferring scientific knowledge to the farmers. So I said about Mutmir. Mutmir has developed a digital agriculture application which consists of flow-up of lots of the lands. There is also a doctor of plants. It means the farmer can only take a picture of some illness or any parasites that he can find in his plants, and the picture is transferred to engineers and agronomes to analyze and get back to him. The farmer can get also information of the markets, how is involving the raw materials, the grains, the commodities of the grain, and also can make a simulation of his yields without before starting an operation or investing. He can make a simulation and many other reports and facilities. And for conclusion, fertilizers market is emerging markets. Africa is an emerging market, so we have lots of to do in Africa. And I greatly thank you very much. And sorry you didn't see that presentation. And I'd be more than happy to discuss with you and receive your question and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mohafi. Thank you very much.
So if you have any question, I'll be more than happy to answer. Yes, Iman, I saw you raising hands.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Mohabit, for your insightful and informative presentation. So my question, so according to the latest reports which I read, they reveal that there is a lack of consumption of fertilizers among farmers. The fact that affects the yields production not only in Morocco but in the whole Africa, given the fact that many efforts were done to maximize fertilizers use among farmers. My question is, are there any marketing strategies launched to boost the fertilizer use among farmers? And if so, how can these strategies successfully reach the farmers, especially small farm holders? I hope my question is clear.
Yeah, thank you very much, Iman. So your question is very important and crucial. In fact, so as I said in my presentation, since 2008, there has been the financial crisis, and industrials, as I said, changed their strategy and started to get farmers in the center of their activity. In fact, if farmers misuse fertilizers, cannot get a high crop yields. That's why industrials approached the farmer and supported him to give him all latest technology tools to enhance the yields. For example, the 4R stewardship, as I mentioned, is a principle that's to use. It means with the agronomists, researchers, with the farmers, to learn him, to teach him how to use fertilizers. It means the 4R, the right source of fertilizer. It means what kind of fertilizers he must use for which plant. If you have maize, different than wheat, different than other commodities. It means that a farmer must know, have the knowledge to get which kind of fertilizers, which time, and which soil. So that's why when I talk there has been mobile labs to analyze first the soil of each farmer, then to advise him what kind of fertilizers must he use. That's why we talk now about 4R stewardship nutrients, or to enhance use of fertilizers. For second part concerning small holders, I agree with you that small holders, very difficult to get in touch with small holders. They need much support to enhance their crop yields, and especially I did forget to mention that in Morocco is canteen for vegetables and fruits for small holders, while large holders are for exports. That's why we have to get in touch with small holders, give them more advice, give them more access to financial credit, because that's what Plan Vert de Maroc talk about, is to assist smallholders. Because before you give money to smallholders, but smallholders, they have other needs. They have other needs for his family, for his children. So instead of spending money for his lands, for his agriculture, he spends money to other needs. So that's why even on finance accessing, you have to support to get to sponsor and to get to keep in touch with the smallholder. That's what is doing Act for Community. If you Act of Community is of OCP Group. In terms of supporting smallholders, they support the smallholder from beginning to the end. Except, of course, other efforts must be made. It means how to get logistical channels after production to get a high value added of the product. So Act for Community is another process. It is proceeding differently, supporting the farmers from the beginning and always in touch with the small farmer. I hope that I did answer your question.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you. Mr. Boulif, Professor Boulif, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Hello, how are you?
Thank you very much, Professor. I'm great. And you?
I enjoyed your lecture. Thank you very much. Very good.
Thank you, Professor. I'm sorry for the presentation. Maybe I had a problem with computer, like the last time. Or anyway, because in the presentation we have many charts that we can analyze. It's different than.
Super.
Thank you, Professor. Welcome.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
From my own experience, I have learned that the farmers believe what they see.
Yeah.
That means that we have to conduct demonstration trials with them on their fields to teach them how to do it. My question is, does OCP has a strategy to conduct such demonstrations throughout the African countries?
Yeah, great question. Thank you very much, Professor. So, in fact, for OCP group, as I said, has implemented the Al-Mutmir. Al-Mutmir, what is said in Arabic, Al-Mutmir للفلاحة عن قرب, or to be, it means to be in close contact with the farmer. So, Al-Mutmir, there are a lot of engineers that they are agronomist engineers that they are always in close contact with farmers. They give them presentations, they give them how to use fertilizers, they assist them even how to use the latest digital tools. This is concerned in Morocco. In Africa, there is also lots, up to now, there are lots of mobile labs that from OCP group that has been in many African countries and started to study the soil in order to produce the adequate fertilizers, what we call them production of fertilizers on demand. It means that to produce a fertilizer which is special to that land, to that country, to that agriculture. So in terms of Al-Mutmir also, they will in the second stage they will reach African countries and also to give assistance to the farmers. In my opinion, there has been a lot of success since starting this operation, which is under the supervision of Mrs. Fatiha Al-Sharwadi, the head of this agricultural innovation. And believe me, this operation is a successful one. So the target speciality of agriculture and the target number of fallah or farmers, smallholders, and to stay with them to teach them how to use fertilizers, how to use latest technology. So, and Africa, we OCP group has done some steps and other steps still on the way. Thank you, Professor. Hope that I did answer.
My pleasure. You did well.
Thank you.
When shall we meet again for the next?
Have maybe next week on 21st, as I spoke.
Okay,
as I spoke with.
To see you again. I will be happy to see you again.
Thank you, Iman. Good afternoon. Hi, Iman. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the presentation. My question is about Al-Mutmir also. I think Al-Mutmir initiative is a great initiative, but it cannot touch like all agriculture farmers in Morocco and Africa. Does OCP apply some digital strategies to share information with these farmers? And are they like digitally ready to like explore this information through digital platforms?
Thank you, Iman, for your question. Well, in fact, Al-Mutmir is more focused on smallholders rather than up to now, rather than large producer. And there is a lot of positive, I think in my opinion, a lot of positive results. And they will try to get to target also African markets. For example, you asked about data. So really, I don't know any platform we can have any data from Al-Mutmir, but what I see is what is Al-Mutmir is involved in the agricultural market. But if they have stored that data, which is sure they have stored data, if these data are public or private, so I don't know. So I invite you to get in touch with Al-Mutmir, and especially Mrs. Fatiha Al-Sharwadi, who she is doing a great job, and she is in the heat of data, and I think she will give you a good reply. Thank you, Iman.
Any more questions? I think, Mr. Abdeljalil, there are no more questions.
Oh.
Thank you for all your efforts and your presentation today. Though we could had a chance to see your presentation. I mean, after the 20 minutes of the technical issues, we managed to see the presentation. So thank you so much for accepting our invitation and being a guest. And thank you also for your sharing your experiences and insights. It's very inspiring for all our students and participants. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Hasna. Thank you very much, all participants. I'm very sorry for the first technical problems. So anyway, I will try to reduce the volume and send it to Hasna, the presentation. You can send it to all participants.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
And if there is a thought, especially for African markets or Moroccan markets or any, because talking about fertilizers during 1 hour, it's not enough. It's a broad subject. So if there's any topic that can be detailed, I would be more than happy. Thank you very much, Hasna. Thank you all. Bye-bye. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.